But in a situation where you find that a look at this,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that. Where you find that a look at this,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television. It's that section again where we bring you all the headlines from leading newspapers in the country. And I have the honor and privilege at this point to welcome in the studio a regular guest and a friend of the show, the general editor of the Daily Trust Title. And I'm talking about no other than Malam Hamza Idris. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning. It always fascinates me how you wake up very strong, knowing fully well how late you go to bed at night. I hope we continue to, God continue to strengthen you to be able to do this for the benefit of Nigeria. We'll bring you straight our first paper for this morning, and it will be the Daily Trust as usual, brimming with several interesting headlines across the breadth of the front page. And the leading headline this morning, of course, still dwelling politics as we draw closer to the deadline for presenting a run mate. And the headline here with the Daily Trust newspaper reads, running mates as kicker. I believe in politics of inclusion, and this is coming from the governor of Plateau State, Lalong. You would recall that there have been several projections, that seem to be suggesting that if we would have to break the Muslim ticket, then Lalong supposedly have a chance at it, especially given that the governors were able to strike a deal that the vice president should come from one of them. And we have some riders there. Ashiwaju can't win without a Muslim running mate, and this is coming from Kalu, the ex-governor of Abia State. All eyes on Buhari, Tinubu, PDP screen contenders today. Well, 1 minute it is Wike, the next minute the race is back on. But I'm sure whatever happens today, there is only 24 hours. We would know before the day runs out, because they have practically less than 48 hours to that ultimate deadline by INEC. And you would do well not to eke the Electoral Commission. If not, your chances could be dealt a serious blow. You'll find the details of this story on page 5 of the Daily Trust. And directly related to that story is this massive picture, the picture that speaks volume. One picture, that is a reflection of the conversation that has been ravaging across the country, which is the amount of interest that Nigerians seem to have been showing towards the 2023 election. It appears that we now have candidates that have sort of stirred the interest of a lot of people who prior to this time would rather stay docile. We are beginning to get some kind of reawakening. We hope indeed, because it's important to have an inclusive government where people can take ownership of the process. I mean, to think that the recent election, Ibrahim, in Anambra, was the governorship election was decided by just 105,000 people in a state with over 4 million population, with over 2 million registered voters. That's a nice sort. It's less than 10% of your population deciding for everybody who leads them. You want, that's why people don't take ownership of governance. It is important that we are getting this kind of people show interest. And I mean, the ages of the people we see on the cover are far more than 18. It does appear to you that they have not been interested for a long time. Whatever it is that is stirring this interest is good for this country, and long may it continue. This is from the Independent National Electoral Commission's FCT office for voters registration in Abuja yesterday. And then we have the story on the belt. Aftermath of primaries, National Assembly pushes for Electoral Act reamendment. We understand 70% of them are not coming back. We understand where this whole clamor is coming, but basically, it appears Nigerian political laws are just meant to serve the political elite. They will do everything to perpetuate themselves in office. And the belt, the editors speak here. We have IPOP kills one, Paste sits at home on corpse in Anambra. You find that story on page 6. How pathetic. 4 men gang rape 13-year-old girl in Borno. Well, page 17, has the details of that story. Kano Assembly approves 10 billion naira loan for CCTV and others. You find that story on page 4. And then right below the nameplate, you have the two other big stories for the day. How gas, bread, and fuel prices raised inflation to 17.71% in May. The inflation number continued to go up, and we understand why. Each of these products, as you recall, Ibrahim, seem to have jumped, has quadrupled in the last 3-4 months.
Exactly, and it doesn't seem like slowing down.
No, it doesn't appear like there is any end in sight. And finally, on the Daily Trust title this morning, foreign reserve drops by $2.9 billion as bank tighten forex reserve. Yesterday, I got a call from some friends saying, is there anything you can do for us? We've been on the line to get forex. I told them, well, I traveled recently myself. I couldn't get one. If I can't save myself, I definitely cannot save you. These are the stories that the Daily Trust title is serving you for your reading delights this morning.
All right, the next newspaper we're going to be looking at this morning is the Leadership newspaper, and of course it doesn't deviate from the usual narrative right now. 24 hours to INEC deadline, Northeast, Northwest lobby Tinubu for running mate. PDP screens VP candidate today. That is a major headline on the front page of the Leadership newspaper, and it carries a rider. Senator Binta Garba makes case for female VP, and APC presidential candidate may unveil running mate today. Still on the front page of the Leadership newspaper, Nigeria's inflation soars to new heights of 17.71%. Strike, ASU issue more complicated than Nigerians think, says the federal government. Well, that's another new dimension to the ASU strike that we're currently facing. Unravel those behind our killings, Senate tells security agencies. Well, the federal government has made a declaration, and they seem to be backtracking a bit concerning the people they feel are responsible for that attack. Well, it remains to be seen whether any headway will be made in that regard. Bandits sack 8 Kebbi Niger villages, kill 33, abduct 30. That is another headline on the front page of the Leadership newspaper. Going back to politics, Yobe senatorial ticket, why I won't step down for Lawan. Machina. That is a developing story that came to the fore, I think, in the last couple of days, and is gaining some traction. Well, it remains to be seen how that unfolds. Well, these are the major headlines on the front page of the Leadership newspaper this morning.
And we will move to the national economy. Let's deviate a bit from the politics-serving platform this morning to discuss the economy. And the national economy this morning has quite a number of those stories that border on the well-being of our economy, starting with the major headline, 81 checkpoints, extortion, stifling trades on Seme, Idi-Roku border routes. This is according to importers. These are popular land border routes that account for most of the land trades in Nigeria. You have the Seme, Idi-Roku, and of course the Jibia in Katsina. We have a story above the nameplate. Active phone lines in Nigeria crossed 200 million mark. That's amazing. That would mean one phone line per person in Nigeria, with a population of slightly above 206 million by the last census update. You have the picture there of the Minister of Petroleum and the Executive Secretary of the Nigeria Content Board there on the front page at the Nigeria Women in Oil and Gas Conference, which had recently. And directly below that picture, we have crude oil. Nigeria, 6 others drop in production, according to OPEC reports. We are struggling to even do the quota that was allocated to us, not to talk of even take advantage of the current windfall occasioned by the Russian-Ukrainian crisis. And directly below that, we see Nigeria inflation hits new heights of 17.71%. And vocational skills in Nigeria power sectors to get $46 million, according to the EU and African Finance and Development Funding. These are the major stories on the front page of the national economy this morning.
Well, it seems now it's time for us to actually delve into the analysis of these headlines that we've actually just reeled out. And, there's nowhere to start, but the running mate issue. The deadline is fast approaching, and lots of permutations here and there. And we just saw the major headline on the front page of Daily Trust saying that Lalong believes in a politics of inclusion. How important is this running mate choice to what we do refer to as politics of inclusion?
You see, Nigerian democracy is evolving for good. I'm an optimist. Many people are looking at these permutations from the negative perspective, but it's positive for us. Why? Before, who has been talking about vice president or deputy governor? I just pick, because they describe them as spare tire or whatever. But they are no longer that. This is one. And then secondly, you've seen how tough it was to produce the two major presidential candidates who will also now battle to suppress emerging regional actors from upcoming political parties. This is a serious development. Thirdly, the issue of Muslim or Christian ticket is not even an issue when you check what the real actors are doing. They are just thinking about how the numbers will come. Proponents of Muslim ticket are mostly from the south now. If you go to Plateau State, those who are advocating for Lalong's candidate are not even Christians. They are Muslims. Go and check the figures. Go and check the analysis. Go and check the articles and all that, both on legacy and social media. So people up there, they are just talking about how to win election, irrespective of these sentiments, religion, tribe, and other persuasions. Sadly, our religious leaders are yet to key into some of these things, because assuming religious leaders also key into it, we will demystify that myth that sharply divide Nigerians. But can Jamaatul Nasrul Islam, Murik, what have you, and even some groups that we never heard about them, they are now hurling insults at each other. And the politicians, they don't bother. Lalong, of course, he is an interested party, but he says that he wants to be vice president not because of his faith, but because of his capacity. He said he was able to, work out a formula that changed the narrative in Jos.
The religious tolerance.
This issue of inclusion, because he said that most of the crisis being experienced in Plateau was because of exclusion. Certain people feel that, okay, it is ours, so no matter what, nobody should be. But he was able to now change some of this. On the other side, Kalu, the Senate chief whip, very funny. He said already Tinubu has a deputy. Who is that deputy?
His wife.
He said his wife is a pastor of the Pentecostal church. So she has already solved that problem. And if Nigerians want APC to retain power, they should now look for a strong person from the north and a Muslim. Now, this is his own understanding. And if, in political science, they say the end justifies the means. So for us, we're just looking at the permutation, but I want to advise that Nigerians who are really not aware of where these politicians are heading to, they should stop creating additional enemies for themselves. The politicians, they don't care. They just want to win election. I think this is my take on this.
Interesting. Yes. The question really would be, for me, would be, like you said, it's an interesting time in our political landscape. But what is this suggesting, especially because we are also beginning to see, as captured rightly on the front page of the Daily Trust, some massive surge in PVC registration. What in your estimation do you think is driving this renewed interest and vigor for young people, not exactly young in some cases, for people to begin to take active interest to participate in the forthcoming
they have seen what the delegates did. Very few people, because of the indiscretion of some people. Now, ordinarily, most likely, if not at the national level, maybe at the local level, at the subnational level, assuming there is the inclusion team, many of those who found their way because they have enormous resources at their disposal wouldn't have been there. So some people have commercialized the ticket to such an extent that even when you have a credible person who you feel will change your life when he gets to the parliament or when he wins the governorship, simply because resources are not there for him to mobilize delegates, now those people have been edged out. This is my thinking.
That's right.
And then there is also serious mobilization by leaders of some of the so-called banana political parties. They are no longer banana political parties now. We have serious contenders now in some political parties that were not heard of before. And they will spring surprises, especially at the subnational level. You will see some state legislators from unknown political parties because people are tired and people want to take, back their
country.
Yes, the power is vested in people.
That's right.
We are just not making use of the numbers in Nigeria.
True.
But my only fear is that is the snag on this, based on my analysis. Last night, even after closing, I kept reading, saying, okay, what is really happening? Because I was appalled when we saw this photo, is that gradually, which is also positive, government agencies and all that are now, attaching preference to identity. You will not get some privileges unless you have
your PVCs.
Some banks will not give you loans now until you present your PVC. You will not travel to some places unless you have
says a worship
PVC.
center, as we have seen.
Worship centers and all that. Even politicians now, some will say, don't even come to my house. Because you just come and share money and you don't have
PVC.
You only make noise.
Interesting.
So,
before I take you out of this conversation, one story that we have not seen in most papers making to the paper is this Saturday's election in Ekiti.
Yes.
Discussing this whole politics, a lot of us think that the Ekiti election will be a litmus test for what to expect in 2023, whether in terms of voters' turnout or the deployment of the BOVAS devised by INEC, or how even non-state actors conduct themselves around this. We saw them sign the peace accord yesterday. What do you think of the Ekiti election in the light of the preparations towards 2020?
The first statement is a litmus test for politicians and for political parties. Check out the contenders. The governor of Haimi is rounding up. He has brought the person he wants to, take over from him. PDP, look at Shogunoni, I think the former governor, right? In another political party.
SDP.
Yes. Almost about 6 or thereabout political parties, they have strong contenders, and all of them are upbeat. And this ripple effect. Whichever political party wins, they will their hope of making a stronger statement at the national level, you know, will become more visible. And that is why all the actors, state and non-state actors, you know, are really heading to Ekiti. Look at the police,
Yes.
the DIG, about 3 deputy, you know, Inspector Generals. Many of them, you know, almost from, apart from the IG, any other category of, they are in Ekiti. The military, they are watching from the sidelines. Of course, they are not expected to be seen. The DSS, and then all the INEC, you know, they are not keeping their election material with the CBN. Can you see how
sensitive
things are now changing? Because ordinarily, why should you even take
sensitive materials to the central?
It's not what is sensitive there. You know, former INEC chairman, you know, he at one of the forums, he said he went on election observation in one of these African countries, and they went to a certain village. They only met one man in a primary school with a lantern, and all the election materials
are kept on there,
waiting for people to come and cast their vote. So there is no. Do you know that our voters, I mean the paper where is more expensive than
than the currency.
Yes, because of the, you know, we don't really trust ourselves. So we are gradually demystified, because by the time we succeed in getting it right in Ekiti, by deploying the beavers, by now entrusting the election material in the hands of some people, and then
transmitting electronically,
and then people respect themselves, and then they come
play
out.
by the rules.
It will be a very good signpost to what will happen in 2023. So it's a litmus test for politicians, and it's a litmus test for Nigeria. Because whatever happens, if we mess up, even the international community will say, okay, the 2023 maybe will be the final throw that
nail in the coffin.
Break the camel's back.
Exactly.
Well, that's something that we need to keep our eye on. We'll definitely do that. Well, still talking about, you alluded to something earlier that actually caught my interest. You talked about very few people making decisions for the majority when you were talking about the delegates. So another category of people that actually fall into this into this particular sphere are the legislators. They are a small group of people, and they make laws that actually affect the many. And right now we've heard them beating the drums of war after the primary elections. After the primary elections, there's lots of rancor being created about section this, section that, we will veto this, we will veto that. Where's all this coming from, and why now?
Again, positive development there. Honestly, I'm so happy today that positive things are happening. But only curious observer will know that all these things are positive. During the last election season, we didn't hear this ranting and then tantrum from the legislature, because that time they were able to, you know, I don't want to use the word manipulation, but they were able to make the laws for themselves to favor themselves. This time around, sadly, they were beclouded by so many things, to the extent that they put certain sections and clauses that honestly, you know, worked against them, and it's too late. The attrition rate, I think, will be much, much higher
than we have seen in recent time.
Because many of them will not come. And we've been, you know, attacking, calling out the president. I think he has started rewriting history now. And he can do more, especially if he liberates the people from poverty and insecurity. But as far as fine-tuning the electoral laws are concerned, he has done very well. As far as playing fatherly role in happenings in his party, he has done very well. You can see nobody is now accusing Buhari of imposing candidate. Nobody is also accusing him of trying to manipulate who becomes the vice president. But it's not like he shut his doors. Any other person who knock, he will open.
Yeah.
He will go and talk. You will leave, but you will not hear anything from him. Statesmanship, which is very good. For the legislators, I think it's an albatross for them, because many of them will not come back. Now, and then the Electoral Act has given enormous power to flag bearers, to the extent that if you attempt to replace somebody's name,
as you have seen with one or two candidates.
Yes, because the winner can easily go to court and it's straightforward. He will get back his mandate. But smartly, you can see few people like Bauchi State Governor, you know, he found a way of
fine-tuning,
not having, because the electoral, and what it said now is, if maybe you put your stooge as an executive or whoever, a powerful politician, you put a stooge and you went on forum shopping somewhere and then you lose, when you come to not just take the ticket, no. It says the person who came second
will take it.
So in Bauchi and I think in Sokoto, they were smart enough. Maybe they read this thing very well. They were able
unopposed.
to. Yes, but there are many people who are now battling to see how they can get their ticket.
Like the Senate President.
I think
Akpabio,
Senator Akpabio.
Yes, so it's really tough.
I think what was tabled before the Senate President was too big. He wasn't interested in what the spare arrangement was until it was too late also. Sokoto and Bauchi were interesting because they had single candidate, and so when those people said they were not interested, what had to happen was the process repeating itself. They are smart guys.
You can see what happened in Akwa Ibom.
Yes.
Because the person who won the APC ticket wasn't a stooge. You know, he vied for it and he won. So now Akpabio went and now organized
a separate primaries.
INEC
said we don't recognize
that. It's a serious.
It's unfortunate. People should understand when the ovation has stopped sounding, so that they can take a back seat and cheer other people. Moving slightly away from politics, we saw yesterday the inflation figures from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, and the numbers seems to be going up now, fueled by fuel, bread, and the cost of gas, whether it is cooking gas or you're referring to aviation fuel or you are even referring to diesel. All of them are compounded in that nomenclature. What fears do you have with this continuous rise in inflation at a time when just about every indices seem to be against the common man?
Yesterday we went out and a civil servant knocked the window of our car and he was begging. Because he had exhausted the peanut.
I don't know.
We're not talking about the minimum wage giving you a bag of rice, because it's no longer 10.
Exactly.
So honestly, it's an outright violation of the fundamental human rights of the citizens. This is my summary of the inflation, because people are just discussing the figures, not the implication of the figures. What we are seeing is that a civil servant or a public servant can no longer feed, because Naira is zero now. So government must wake up and change the narrative by reclaiming the economy, because very few people are manipulating the economy, and we have to do the right thing by looking at the indices. Because indices are there. If you cannot export, the foreign
Reserve
exchange will
will
not
not
come, and the foreign reserve will keep
Depleting.
depleting, and then the cost of living will
Go
keep
up.
going up. Now, diesel, 700, 800?
It's about 800, 750 something.
So many industries have closed shop because they cannot just afford it. And the implication is that there will be rise in crimes and criminality because some people who have no courage in court to beg, because you even need to have that courage to beg. Some will start stealing now.
True.
So robbery will increase and all that. I'm looking at it from this
Perspective.
perspective. So government should fix the system, and you can see we are not really, the prices of crude is increasing by the day.
To touch about $120.
So it's now, this is the time for Nigeria to even give free money. Because some countries are doing that.
True.
But you can see simply because of the indiscretion of some people, it's now a cost to us.
No, that is quite unfortunate when you look at it from that perspective. But is there any end in sight? I mean, like,
Yes, yes. Nigeria is very rich. I'm telling you, the resources are there. We just have to do the right thing. One, let's quickly fix our refineries, build new ones, so that we now refine
Locally.
locally. If we refine locally, you can ask people, you can give people, say, okay, it is Christmas, so we are giving you free today. Go to the fields. It's ours.
But this is a dance that we've been doing for a very long time.
Yes.
Even this present administration rode on the wings of something like that. We'll revive for refineries, and then within the next one, the first year of our administration, we'll do this, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And we keep hearing it every time.
Because assuming we are refining our products, the dollars will be there.
Exactly.
The foreign reserve, because the resources are ours. Please imagine that we don't have crude oil. Will there be Nigeria?
Absolutely not.
So
Absolutely.
government is not doing favors for people. If you say nobody is subsidizing anything, Buhari has said this, and I still believe in this, because some people are not just doing the right thing. That is why we are talking about subsidy. Because if you have the refineries that are functioning, you block all the leakages. As we speak now, what is the volume of the crude
That we export.
we export? It has come down. And then what do we have in return? Because the issue of under-recovery is what is actually taking the whole gains
Anyway.
to import
Refined
this
products.
fuel. And when it's not, I can't even remember the last time I bought
queued.
fuel from Felicity, because I don't have the luxury of time to join the queue. So I buy 10 liters. Even yesterday, I bought 10 liters, 3,500 or 4,000.
Yeah.
Then, if it finishes, I buy another one. It's really, really sad. Yes.
It's unfortunate. Away from the economic and political stories now to some of the things we now begin to see on a daily basis. We don't know whether they are just the propensity for these odds beginning to increase, or it is the media attention that seems to have increased in recent time. Every day you wake up, you hear of one bestiality or the other. Today we have on the cover of the papers how 4 men gang raped 13-year-old girl in Borno, and on the other hand, you find the act of killing somebody and leaving a paste or a sit-at-home paste on the cadaver. You know, every day you wake up, it's one odd story or the other. What's happening to our humanity?
We have lost it, and people believe in diabolical means to get to somewhere. Because I don't think if that gang rape episode was a pleasurable task. It wasn't. 4 of you raping a young girl.
13-year-old.
So most likely the charlatans were advised by one
Native doctor.
native doctor that, okay, if you rape a virgin, you will all be rich. this is my understanding, because, you know, privacy, you know, having affair is meant to be a pleasurable task. But by the time you now descended on someone against his or her will,
it becomes
you know that there was nothing like pleasure there. I mean, you are looking for something. We had a story yesterday that another episode of this kind of speciality. The man descended on a young girl, and then he now wiped the semen with a handkerchief, and he fled. And the young girl narrated this. Now, people in the court, they are asking him to produce
The handkerchief.
He refused. So you can now see how people have surrendered their destiny in the hands of, you know, useless people. Because the person who will now make you rich will ask you to give him maybe 5,000 or 10,000. Why can't he make himself rich? Now, for the other one, I don't want to say it, but people don't even want to call perpetrators of these crimes by their names. Now look at the debate in the parliament, and then the speech by the Minister of Information, and then the response
From the
to
governor.
by the governor. But why can't we just separate the crime from the profiling and then say, okay, let's just go after those against us, our common enemy? Because honestly, there is no difference between a terrorist, a thief,
a bandit,
IPOP, or whatever.
Whatever.
They are all criminals. So the state should simply go after all of them, demystify them, so that people can have peace. But by the time we start thinking of saying, no, the crime was not perpetrated by IPOP, it was perpetrated by hoodlums. It was not terrorists, it was bandits. What are we talking about? Shifting blame. And that will not take us anywhere. So I pray that we stop, whenever there is a crime, we should just go for the criminal. Yes, take him out so that another one will not replace him. Yes.
Before we let you go, we said earlier it is the Ekiti State election coming up in another 72 hours. We are building momentum to 72, 48 hours, if I'm not mistaken, Ibrahim, even though we are not, what do you call it, delegates to that election. And then the vice presidential candidates, we are looking forward to that critical announcement that would further sway some people or shift alliance, as the case may be. We would like your final thoughts on these two major political activities leading us into this weekend. Your words for how people in the Ekiti State election should comport and conduct themselves. The stakes are high. We saw the clerics and the traditional moving into really calm phrase. We know how soldiers have been shooting in that state in the last 1 week, trying to douse tension, and that alone has the capacity to further discourage some popular participation.
My prayer is that security agencies should work hard so that people will not be scared. That is with respect to the Ekiti election, so that people will come out. Let's change the tone. Let's see whether the issue of voter turnout will now be positive instead of 110 or 120,000 people
deciding who becomes a governor.
Millions of people. Yes, let's see the votes count so that we get a credible leader. Because if you allow just 200 people to elect your governor, you are in for it. Because you cannot hold him to account.
Exactly.
He will call you out if you attempt to mess him up. Good. Now, at the national level, I'm very happy that some of our laws are really working. You can now see that any of the political parties, about 18 or 17 that have fielded presidential candidates, they have maybe not 24 hours. I think it's around 30 hours because it will be maybe
midnight,
towards evening that they have, meaning no option. Yesterday, our editor-in-chief, he forwarded something that, because nothing is impossible now. There is this claim that Tinubu has picked somebody, Masari.
Yes.
I don't know whether it's the governor or because Masari is a name of, I think, town, something good, so as to beat the INEC deadline. We're not sure. But it's, you know, politicians are extremely slippery.
That's right.
But they have no option but to produce. But they know that they have to make the right decision, irrespective of the, you know, minute and needless, you know, issues surrounding that. But it's their last moment to get it right, because election will be here sooner than later.
Absolutely. Well, we deeply running out of time. You have heard it all from Malam Hamza Idris. Quite a number of political education, if you like, on this episode. He, if you recall, the last time he was here some 7 days ago, he talked about our elections evolving to the level where we can even begin to name ministers before the swearing in. And that way, maybe those of us on this side of the media, we begin to even bring you profiles of these persons and what they had done playing similar roles and how much they fit into whatever roles we look forward to them and what the agendas will be, so that the moment you are sworn in at the Eagle Square, you hit the ground running. There is no waiting for 6 months to contemplate who is a saint, who is a devil, who is a fit, and who is a misfit. Quite a number of work waiting for us, quite a number of evolutions that we have gone through in the last 7 years, and still quite a number of evolutions waiting to happen between now and the election period. We will be here to bring you all the minutest of details, to bring you all of the analysis that you would need as far as the 2023 elections are concerned. It is the point where we would say goodbye to Malam Hamza Idris, who, like he told you, has so much contending for his time on an average day. We wish you all the best, and we hope that we see you again in a fortnight or even earlier than that. We will take a short breather at this point, and the show continues when we return. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that. But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.